Rising geopolitical tension has placed the Arctic region back into the global spotlight, as Canada strengthens its military readiness across the far north. Once viewed as a remote and quiet frontier, the Arctic is now emerging as one of the most strategically important regions in the world. With melting sea ice gradually opening new shipping lanes and exposing vast natural resources, global powers are increasingly paying attention to what happens in these frozen waters. Recent political rhetoric connected to Donald Trump has intensified discussions around Arctic security and territorial sovereignty. Canadian defense officials have responded by enhancing surveillance operations, expanding patrol missions, and preparing specialized Arctic units trained to operate in extreme cold conditions. Military aircraft, advanced radar systems, and satellite monitoring networks are being used to observe activity across thousands of kilometers of northern territory. Experts say the Arctic is no longer just about ice and isolation. The region represents potential economic opportunity, strategic maritime routes, and geopolitical influence. As countries evaluate their long-term interests in the polar environment, Canada's decision to increase readiness reflects a broader effort to ensure that its northern territories remain secure, monitored, and protected in a rapidly changing global landscape, where the Arctic's future role in international security continues to grow. Rising geopolitical tension has brought renewed attention to the northern frontier, as Canada moves to reinforce its military readiness across the Arctic region. Government and defense officials have quietly increased monitoring operations, expanded aerial surveillance, and strengthened strategic coordination in response to growing political pressure and controversial rhetoric associated with Donald Trump. The situation has sparked debate among analysts, policymakers, and international observers who see the Arctic rapidly transforming from a remote frozen expanse into a critical arena of global strategy and national security. Canadian defense authorities have reportedly elevated readiness levels among units responsible for protecting northern territories. Patrol aircraft have been deployed to monitor vast stretches of icy coastline, while advanced radar systems continue scanning the skies for any unusual activity. Military planners are emphasizing preparedness and rapid response capability in the region, where harsh weather, long distances, and limited infrastructure make operations especially challenging. Despite these difficulties, Canada has invested heavily in specialized Arctic training, equipping troops to operate in extreme cold, navigate frozen terrain, and maintain communication across remote environments. The Northern Territories of Canada represent one of the largest Arctic landmasses in the world, stretching across thousands of kilometers of coastline and ice-covered waters. These areas have long been considered strategically important, but recent geopolitical developments have elevated their significance even further. As global temperatures gradually reshape the polar environment, previously inaccessible waters are beginning to open during certain months of the year. This shift has increased the importance of monitoring shipping routes, natural resource exploration, and national sovereignty. Military analysts say the Arctic is becoming an increasingly complex security environment. Countries with interests in the region are investing in ice-capable naval vessels, surveillance satellites, and long-range patrol aircraft designed to operate in polar conditions. Canadian defense leaders argue that maintaining a consistent presence in the north is essential not only for security, but also for protecting local communities and supporting search and rescue operations. Indigenous communities living across Canada's northern territories rely on government infrastructure, and military forces often play an important role in emergency response during extreme weather events. Political discourse in recent months has intensified attention on Arctic sovereignty. Statements connected to Donald Trump have drawn international attention, prompting discussions about territorial interests, strategic influence, and the future balance of power in the polar regions. While officials in Ottawa have emphasized diplomacy and cooperation with allies, they also stressed that safeguarding national territory remains a fundamental responsibility of the Canadian government. Defense planners are therefore working to ensure that surveillance networks, early warning systems, and rapid deployment units remain fully operational. The logistical challenges of Arctic defense are immense. Temperatures can plunge far below freezing, equipment must be specially engineered to withstand severe conditions, and transportation across ice-covered landscapes requires specialized vehicles and aircraft. Canadian forces train extensively for these conditions, practicing navigation across frozen sea ice, building temporary shelters, and maintaining supply lines across remote terrain where roads are scarce or non-existent. This training is designed to ensure that personnel can respond effectively to any emerging situation in the region. In addition to traditional military capabilities, Canada has also invested in advanced monitoring technologies designed to track movement across the Arctic. Satellite surveillance plays a major role in observing ice patterns, shipping activity, and environmental changes. Radar installations positioned across northern regions provide early warning against potential aerial threats, forming part of broader continental defense systems. These systems allow defense authorities to maintain constant awareness of activity in the vast Arctic airspace. Strategists also point out that the Arctic's importance is not limited to security concerns. Beneath the frozen terrain lie significant reserves of natural resources, including oil, gas, and rare minerals. As ice coverage fluctuates and technology advances, these resources are attracting increasing global attention. Control over access routes, maritime corridors, and territorial boundaries has therefore become a subject of growing international interest. For Canada, protecting these assets is closely tied to maintaining a stable and secure presence across the North. Canadian officials frequently highlight that their approach remains defensive and focused on sovereignty protection. Military operations in the Arctic are designed primarily to ensure that Canadian territory remains monitored and secure while supporting broader international stability. Cooperation with allied nations also plays a role in Arctic policy, as countries share information and coordinate activities to prevent misunderstandings or accidental escalation in the region. Observers note that the Arctic environment itself adds another layer of complexity to geopolitical dynamics. Climate change is reshaping the physical landscape, altering sea ice patterns, and creating unpredictable navigation conditions. These environmental shifts require constant monitoring and adaptation by governments and military planners. Canadian defense agencies therefore maintain close collaboration with scientific institutions studying the polar environment, combining research data with security planning to better understand how the region is evolving. The strategic importance of the Arctic has grown dramatically in recent years, transforming the region from a remote frozen wilderness into a focal point of global geopolitical competition. Nations with northern borders and strategic interests are paying closer attention to the vast icy expanse as shifting environmental conditions and emerging economic opportunities begin to reshape the balance of power. Governments are increasing surveillance, strengthening defense capabilities, and investing in specialized military infrastructure designed to operate in one of the harshest environments on Earth. For decades, the Arctic remained largely isolated from major geopolitical rivalries due to its extreme climate and difficult accessibility. Temperatures can plunge far below freezing, winter darkness can last for months, and sea ice has historically blocked most maritime travel. However, scientists monitoring climate patterns report that warming temperatures are gradually altering the region. Seasonal melting of sea ice is opening new maritime corridors that were once considered impossible to navigate. These emerging routes have attracted the attention of shipping companies, energy corporations, and governments eager to secure future trade pathways. Among the most discussed routes is the potential expansion of trans-Arctic shipping lanes that could dramatically shorten travel distances between major global markets. Ships traveling between Asia, Europe, and North America may one day pass through Arctic waters, reducing journey times and fuel costs. While these possibilities remain limited by unpredictable ice conditions, many countries are already preparing for a future in which Arctic shipping could become far more common. This transformation has placed increasing responsibility on northern nations, such as Canada, whose territory includes a vast portion of Arctic coastline and numerous island chains stretching deep into polar waters. Canadian defense and security planners recognize that protecting these territories requires constant monitoring and a well-equipped presence in the region. Surveillance aircraft routinely patrol the skies above northern waters, while maritime forces maintain readiness to operate in icy conditions. The Arctic is not only important because of shipping routes, it is also believed to contain enormous natural resource reserves. Geological surveys suggest that significant amounts of oil, natural gas, and valuable minerals may lie beneath Arctic seabeds and remote northern landscapes. Extracting these resources remains technically challenging and expensive, but advancements in technology have gradually made exploration more feasible. As a result, governments are closely watching developments to ensure that potential resources remain within their national jurisdictions. Security analysts argue that the combination of natural resources, strategic sea routes, and shifting environmental conditions has elevated the Arctic to a level of importance comparable to other major geopolitical regions. Military planners from multiple countries now view the area as a space where strategic influence must be maintained. This has led to increased investments in ice-capable vessels, long-range aircraft, satellite monitoring systems, and specialized training programs for troops assigned to Arctic operations. In this evolving environment, political rhetoric can also influence strategic calculations. Discussions involving figures such as Donald Trump have drawn attention to questions of territorial influence, resource control, and national security priorities. While such statements often emerge within broader political debates, they can still prompt governments to review their defense readiness and ensure that their sovereignty is clearly protected. Arctic military preparedness requires a unique set of capabilities. Standard equipment designed for temperate climates often fails in extreme cold, where metal can become brittle, electronics can malfunction, and vehicles can struggle to move through deep snow and ice. Soldiers operating in polar environments must undergo extensive training to survive and function effectively. They learn to navigate frozen landscapes, construct shelters capable of withstanding severe storms, and maintain communication systems despite harsh atmospheric conditions. Infrastructure also plays a vital role in maintaining presence across the Arctic. Airstrips capable of supporting large aircraft are rare in the region, making logistics a complex challenge. Supplies must often be transported by air or seasonal ice roads, which can disappear as temperatures rise. Governments are therefore investing in improved northern facilities, including upgraded runways, radar installations, and communication networks that allow rapid coordination between military units and emergency responders. Technology has become an essential component of Arctic security strategy. Satellites orbiting above the polar region provide constant observation of sea ice movement, vessel traffic, and atmospheric conditions. Radar stations positioned across northern territories help monitor airspace and detect approaching aircraft long before they reach populated areas. Combined with maritime patrols and aerial reconnaissance missions, these systems form a comprehensive network designed to maintain awareness across one of the largest and most remote regions on the planet. The Arctic also requires cooperation among nations that share interests in the region. Diplomatic frameworks and international agreements have historically helped manage territorial claims and environmental protections. Scientific collaboration plays a significant role as well, with researchers from multiple countries conducting studies on climate change, wildlife ecosystems, and oceanographic patterns. These partnerships help governments better understand the rapidly changing polar environment while maintaining channels of communication that can reduce the risk of conflict. Despite the challenges and uncertainties, the Arctic continues to draw increasing attention from policymakers and strategic planners. Environmental change, economic opportunity, and evolving security concerns are reshaping perceptions of the region's importance. As governments strengthen surveillance capabilities and expand their presence across northern territories, the once isolated polar frontier is becoming an increasingly active and closely watched arena of global strategy. The recent military mobilization by Canada has drawn global attention to the rapidly evolving security dynamics of the Arctic, a region once considered distant from the center of geopolitical tension. Defense analysts and international observers are closely examining the implications of increased readiness across Canada's northern territories. The decision to reinforce monitoring operations and strengthen military preparedness has been interpreted as a signal that Arctic sovereignty and security remain a top priority for the Canadian government. Canada possesses one of the longest Arctic coastlines in the world, stretching across a vast network of islands, waterways, and ice-covered seas. This immense geography presents both an opportunity and a challenge. On one hand, the region offers strategic access to emerging maritime routes and valuable natural resources. On the other hand, its remoteness and harsh climate make defense operations extremely complex. Maintaining surveillance across such a large area requires advanced technology, coordinated military planning, and constant logistical support. Canadian authorities have emphasized that the mobilization effort is intended primarily as a defensive measure designed to safeguard national territory. Surveillance aircraft continue to patrol northern airspace, while maritime forces maintain readiness to respond to potential incidents in remote waters. Specialized Arctic units trained to operate in extreme cold are also prepared to deploy if necessary, ensuring that Canada can respond quickly to any developments in the region. Political debate has intensified as international attention focuses on statements and policy discussions linked to Donald Trump, which have sparked broader conversations about the strategic balance of power in the Arctic. Although the rhetoric surrounding these discussions varies widely, the underlying issue revolves around national sovereignty and the importance of maintaining control over northern territories. Governments around the world understand that the Arctic's future will likely play a significant role in global economics, transportation, and resource management. The potential for new shipping routes is one of the factors driving increased attention to the Arctic. As climate conditions evolve and sea ice patterns change, vessels may gain greater access to waterways that connect major global markets. These routes could significantly reduce travel distances between continents, creating economic advantages for countries capable of managing and protecting them. Canada's northern waters are positioned directly along several of these potential corridors, making them strategically important for both commercial shipping and national security. In addition to transportation routes, the Arctic contains significant reserves of energy resources and minerals. Geological surveys conducted over the past several decades suggest that large quantities of oil and natural gas may exist beneath Arctic seabeds and remote northern landscapes. Extracting these resources requires advanced technology and substantial financial investment, but many countries continue to study the region's long-term economic potential. Control over these resources has therefore become closely linked to national sovereignty and strategic influence. Canada's approach to Arctic security involves a combination of military preparedness, technological monitoring, and international cooperation. Surveillance satellites, radar networks, and aerial reconnaissance missions help authorities maintain awareness of activity across the vast polar environment. These systems allow defense agencies to track shipping traffic, monitor environmental conditions, and respond to emergencies such as aircraft incidents or maritime distress calls. At the same time, cooperation with allied nations remains an important element of Arctic policy. Canada works closely with international partners to share information, coordinate search and rescue operations, and support scientific research in the polar region. Collaborative initiatives help ensure that environmental protection, maritime safety, and regional stability remain priorities, even as geopolitical competition increases. The Arctic environment itself continues to present unique challenges for military planners and policymakers. Extreme weather conditions, unpredictable ice movement, and limited infrastructure make operations difficult even under routine circumstances. Personnel deployed in the region must be trained to survive prolonged exposure to severe cold, navigate across frozen terrain, and maintain communication systems in remote locations where conventional infrastructure is limited. Northern communities also play an essential role in Canada's Arctic strategy. Indigenous populations living across the region possess generations of knowledge about the land, sea, and seasonal conditions. Their expertise often contributes to navigation, environmental monitoring, and search and rescue efforts. Governments increasingly recognize that successful Arctic policy requires cooperation with these communities, whose presence and cultural heritage are deeply connected to the region. Global interest in the Arctic continues to expand as governments assess the region's long-term strategic value. Investments in research stations, satellite monitoring systems, ice-capable ships, and northern infrastructure demonstrate how seriously nations are approaching the challenges and opportunities presented by the polar environment. Defense planners in Canada view preparedness as an essential part of maintaining sovereignty and ensuring that any future developments in the Arctic occur under stable and carefully monitored conditions. International observers note that decisions made today regarding Arctic security, environmental protection, and economic development will shape the region's future for decades. The increasing visibility of military readiness, political dialogue, and technological monitoring reflects a broader recognition that the Arctic is no longer isolated from global affairs. Governments are therefore carefully evaluating their policies, resources, and strategic partnerships as attention toward the polar frontier continues to grow.